There she is. Little crack there in the side of the radiator. To remove this cowling, you're going to go around and remove all of these screws that are holding it in. So the way that you do that is you get a screwdriver up underneath to pull this part up, and then once that's up and even pulls out, then you can pull this other piece out. If you leave this piece in, then they'll jump everywhere when you finally go to pull it, so you don't want that to happen. So then once all those are out, you can lift the cover and just set it aside. So we're going to remove right here on the throttle body where the air intake system hooks up. Just get a common screwdriver, flat-headed screwdriver, and unscrew that a few rounds, and then it'll pull off of the throttle body. Okay, so that's out of the way. As you can see on the bottom of that, there was this little hose clamp that was just holding on to this upper radiator hose. So just undo that so it's out of the way. Then come around here and undo it here. Undo this little hose here. Basically, we're just doing everything we can to free up this shroud. So now I'm going to remove this shroud that goes over the fan assembly. And so to do that, there's a few small bolts here. Looks like 8mm. And there are clips. I've replaced the water pump on this before, and I used oversized zip ties because that's all I had. I'll just break those loose. And they really did okay. They did the trick just fine. But anyway, so we'll continue to pull this part out now to get more room to the back of that radiator. Okay, so I wiggled this part out, and it was held in by clips here on the bottom on both sides. Mine were zip tied because I had already separated the clips, but you just separate them and then set this out of the way. So that gives us a little more room to work back here. So now from the back side of the radiator on the passenger side, you'll find 3 different hoses that we're going to have to be undoing. 2 of these are going to come off with a 3/4 inch or 19mm wrench. First you pull this black tab towards the back, and then that allows you to access the bolt. So there's one of those up top. In the middle there's just a hose here that we're going to take off with a pair of pliers. We're going to pinch this hose clamp and walk it backwards and then pull this hose off. And then there at the bottom there's another one of these that has a nut on the top of it that we're going to take off. And again, it's a 3/4 or 19mm wrench, and 3/4 and 19mm is still a little bit loose on these, so just be careful when you're taking them off. But we'll take those off and then proceed to the actual radiator hose that's below it, the bigger one. So with the wrench on here, it'll eventually break loose. Just remember you're going downward with this, counterclockwise. Sometimes you get confused when you're upside down and backwards. So just remember it's going counterclockwise to take this off. And just proceed when you get down. They can be kind of hard, be on there pretty good. Go ahead and just unscrew these. And we want to do these first while the radiator is still secured in place. That way it's easier to work on. So for this little hose clamp one, just get a pair of pliers on here, squeeze it together, and then you can just move that clip away, and then just pull the hose off. You might have some coolant still in there, so you'll have to mop the floor when you're done for sure. So next we're going to remove this bigger radiator hose at the bottom here that goes into the bottom of the radiator. It's just another hose clamp that will compress slide the hose clamp off, and then pull the radiator hose off of the radiator. Now this is where you'll lose the most coolant if you still have any inside the radiator, so have a good bucket under here to catch it. Sorry I couldn't get that part on camera, just doing it one-handed, but as you can see it's draining now out of the radiator spout, and there's the hose right next to it with the clip that I just had to move over and then pull the hose off, and it's draining now into a bucket. So this is where you'll lose the good majority of whatever coolant's left. Next we'll go after this top hose that's going into the radiator, and the order of all these really isn't too important. You just walk that clamp off, and then just slide the hose off. Next we'll take this hose clamp off on the driver's side, just pinch, walk it back, and just pull the hose off. Okay, next we're going to go after the actual radiator mounts. They're just 13mm bolts, one on each side. So with both of these 13mm bolts out on each side, just pull the bracket and the radiator is free. Now you can just lift it straight out. Okay, so here's the new radiator. When you go into the auto parts store or even call them on the phone, they'll tell you that there's like 6 or 7 different radiators and they won't know which one you need because they'll ask you if you have transmission cooling lines and all kinds of stuff. So the easiest way is probably what I did. I just took the old one in and just made sure it was the same thickness, made sure it still had the same attachments in all the same places, and I determined it was the same one. I actually also had a part number right here on the old one. Let me get that for you. So it was this JDS, and I gave them that 524866598, and in my case it worked out. So look for any of that identification on there, and that might help you as well. Now this new one comes with new hardware here, and that's already on the line, so I might just use the other one that's already still on the car as long as it threads evenly. So you'll just have to take it off here and down here. I had it on here somewhat tight. Just remove those. Next, take a common or flathead screwdriver and then loosen these up. These are the hose clamps that they give you, and they just have little covers over these new pieces here. So then you pretty much just drop this one back down in there, and we're going to put some Teflon tape over the threads as we screw this in so that it doesn't leak on both of those, and then just hook everything else back up. So this is the new hardware that comes with it to install the hard lines that are going into the radiator. So this is already on the car, and this is the new hardware that they gave us. So in order to put this new hardware on and take the old one off, you can see there's a ring that goes around this and disappears into 3 holes that are cut right here into this rim. So what you want to do is, it's easiest for me at least to start where the hard gap is, because it's kind of like a C-shaped ring with points on it. So we're going to start where the ring starts here, and if you push on the inside, you see that it exposes this ring right here. So once you have it exposed, you can get a screwdriver in there. And I'm applying pressure with my finger here on that one to also help with this. But as you see, you just spread it apart and the ring slides out. Now you can slide this off, assuming this was the old one on the car, and then put this new one on, and once it's on, you just put this back on. So now to reinstall this ring, assuming that this is now on the hard line on the car, just put this top part here into one of the holes. Then come around so that this end skips the middle hole. You basically want it to go back in just like that. So see how it clipped into its spot? So you just want to line up the loose end over on this side and make sure the other loose end is going in on this side, which leaves that middle part going right back into the middle. So there you have it. So now I just dropped the new radiator back in, and it's sitting down on the mounts, and we're going to put it back here and fasten it down with our 13mm bolts. Okay, so next I reinstalled that bottom radiator hose. Just spread the clamp, put the hose back on, and release the clamp. And next we'll go on to our hard lines. So I have the Teflon tape around the tip of these hard lines, and as I'm putting them into the radiator, be very careful to line it up perfectly straight and make sure that you're threading it in there gently. Don't force it, because if you're cross threading it, then you're hosed. So line it up and gently screw it in by hand and make sure that it's going in correctly. So as these hard lines are going in, you can see they're going in easy. I know I'm threading them right. So don't put a wrench on it until they're all the way in. So that's both of them, the top one and the bottom one. Now tighten these hard lines pretty much until they don't really want to go anymore, but remember that there's a plastic housing here, so if you go too tight on these, you could potentially strip the inner bolt there or break it. So just get them good and snug when you know that they're kind of at their end, but just do not over tighten them. Okay, so we reinstalled this top hose, our hard lines back on. We reinstalled that middle hose, reinstalled the hard line at the bottom, and also the main radiator return line. Now, as we come over to this side, and we have this hose that goes back into here, this is where we're going to fill the radiator. A lot of mistakes that happen with these is people will go and fill the overflow tank and that's it. And if you do that, it will not fill the radiator entirely. So we're going to use a hose here and fill the majority of the radiator here until it's about to overflow. Then we're going to pour coolant into this hose so it goes back into the engine, and then we're going to just try to get as much coolant in here as we can, because you don't want air in the system. So what I've done here is I've attached this part of the hose, and I came over here where it goes into the water pump, and I took it off. So now I can hold this up and pour the coolant directly into this to fill the radiator. Once that's pretty much full, I'll probably just take it off over here again, reattach this side, and pour the coolant in that way so that I have this level full and this level full, and then I'll just put the hose back on. Sure, it's probably a good idea to have this cap released as well. And you want to make sure that there's enough fluid in here that it's not sucking air back into that system either. So I am now filling the radiator, since this hose is connected back up to the radiator side. Okay, now that I feel that it's in the hose, so without making a huge mess here, we'll be able to put this back onto the water pump. Okay. Now I'll take it back off over on this side and fill it here. Now the high point is how it will siphon back down, so you want this to be the highest point when you're adding fluid. And I'm sure once you get it too full, you might start coming out of this overflow. So once again, be careful because eventually it'll come back out of where this hose connects as the system's full. I'm out of coolant and we're pretty close, and this is distilled water, so this is okay. It won't cause any rust. So we're pretty, that's about as full as I can get it right now. I'm going to put the clamp back on. Okay, so our system is pretty much full now. We'll just reinstall the bezel and everything and should be ready. So next I'm going to install the top shroud piece, and the lower piece we left in there the whole time, so it's already sitting down there. But it's very important to note that it sits inside of these clips. There's one on each side of the radiator, so that bottom half of the bottom bezel, make sure that it's down and locked into that. That's what's holding it in place. Then we'll drop the top part back on and it connects in those 4 places around it. So this bottom shroud piece needs to lock into that tab that's on the side of the radiator. That's what holds it in place. Then this top piece can go back on and it hooks together. They form kind of like a sandwich as they pair back up. So make sure as you're connecting this top shroud to the bottom shroud, the holes have to line up there, and there's a little tab right there. It's kind of hard to see right there in the middle of the screen. Those have to line up too. You want to make sure it's all lined up so that it's not getting chopped up by the fan if it's out of alignment. So you just hook it up there. I'm going to use zip ties for now because that's all I have. Make sure that that nub is in its place. Make sure that this one's lined up as well on both sides. Make sure that these bolts are in here on each side. That also holds the shroud in place. Okay, now just go through, make sure you put the cap back on the reservoir. Make sure that all the lines have been reconnected. And as you can see, the shroud is now back on, and there's clips for these hoses to go into. Make sure that they're all in place here. We put the throttle body back on, and there was a hose clamp on its side coming up too that we just made sure was good. You really just want to make sure that there's no hoses going into the fan. So if they're routed the way that they were and in their proper clips, that shouldn't happen. Okay, so now I'm going to have to fasten down in there. Once again, I had those clips lost when my water pump went out on the side of the road, and so I'll just zip tie them again. But with everything put back together here, we'll put the cover back on and be able to start it up. Just checking all the fittings. make sure the water pump is actually spinning and didn't cause this to overheat. Just watch all those coolant levels. Next, we'll just put the cover back on. So with each of these clips, put the base part in first. You can see it has to be squeezed at the tip of it to get it to go in. Okay, once it's in, the top part has a square wedge, so just line it up so that it's facing the same direction, and then pound it down. Just do that to all of them, and then you're ready to go. Now just take the car for a drive, get it up to operating temperature, just watch the temperature. If the needle starts to go up and then goes back down and goes back up again, back down, then you may have air in the system and the thermostat's trying to compensate for that. If it holds steady, then you're probably pretty good. So just keep an eye on that the next few days that you drive it, and make sure you check the expansion tank to make sure it hasn't sucked in, you know, any of the coolant and needs more added to it. And thanks to this nice epoxy job, after that catastrophe, it's still nice and clean. Cleaned up real fast. The truck's running again. Yeah.